Can anyone confirm my screen is visible or not?
Yes, it's visible.
Sorry.
It's visible.
Speak again. Sorry. I think there was some issue with my audio. Hello.
Yeah, it's visible. Sorry.
I think okay. Let me join from another device also. Yeah. Now should be fine. Okay. So in last class we had discussion what is Mulesoft and why we need Mulesoft. If anyone has any query on this part, let me know. Otherwise, we'll discuss next topic. Okay, fine. So it looks like everyone clear with this. What is Mulesoft? So as per discussion, like Mulesoft is ESB technology. Okay, it's an enterprise service bus which allow heterogeneous system to communicate with each other. Okay, and inside MuleSoft, what all things we do? We do data orchestration, we do data enrichment. Okay, so all this kind of process we do inside the MuleSoft. Okay, so to learn this particular technology, there are many small terminology we have, which we will use throughout this 3-month training program. Okay, so what all terminology we will use very frequently. So we need to aware and we need to understand what is the meaning of each terminology. Okay, so first thing we will use very frequently, that is API. So can anyone tell me what is API? What is your understanding for API?
API is application programming interface, which has means a set of code that can be executed for a particular function. Reusable.
Okay. Anyone else want to try this?
Yes, API is an application programming interface. It's a messenger that takes requests from a user and tell the system what you want to do in return, and the response back to the user. It is mostly like a software that is intermediary that allows two applications to talk to each other.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so what happened, like whenever we will work for any enterprise, okay, whenever we will work for any company, okay, so there So whenever we will work for any organization, okay, there will be multiple heterogeneous system. Okay. So let's say we have source system as a front end application. Okay. This front end application can be anything: mobile application, web application. Okay. Like it can be mobile device also, or it can be like website or some kind of website also. Okay. So this is our front end application. And another system, let's say we have database. Okay. So for particular requirement, we will like we will receive the request from mobile application, and we need to insert the data into database. Okay. So here they need some intermediate system which help them to receive the request from this device and pass that request to database. Let's say we are doing customer registration or we are doing customer login. Okay. So who will do this data processing from this application to this application? So in between, we will have Mule ESP. Okay. Now, what this Mule ESP do? It will create one REST API, or simply at this moment. So using this particular technology, Mule ESP, we are creating API. Okay. Now, what this API will do? It will take the request from the source. Okay, this is our source system. And this one is target. So what this API do? It provide one interface which takes data from the source and process to target. Okay. Now it can be one directional also, like data is coming from source and it's going to target, or it can be like two-way also. Two-way means once request will be received, that request will be sent to target system, and then we'll get from response from here. Let's say we are doing customer registration. So what we will do? We will insert the data into database. That's it. But if we are doing the if we are developing some API to retrieve some data from the database, like getting the customer detail, customer profile. In that case, what we need? In that case, first request will come. Same request will go to this database system. then from here we can make it and we have this response. So what this API do? It provides programming interface which take request from the which helps to heterogeneous two or more. Okay, it's not only two, which allow two or more heterogeneous system to exchange the data. Okay, that's why we are saying this as a interface. Now there can be multiple kind of API. Okay. So if we talk about API, so we can have multiple kind of API. We can have so one we have REST API. Another one we can have SOAP API. Then we have scheduler API. Then we have event driven API. These are few example. We can have a few more example of like different kind of API. So these are the frequently used type. Okay. So whenever we talks about the REST API, that means there is one integration pattern. Okay, REST is a integration pattern or integration design. If we are following that design pattern and we are developing some API, that is REST API, and nowadays it's very popular since it's a lightweight. Okay, and it give better throughput and all, and it support multiple messaging format. Okay, that's why we term this as a REST API since it follow the REST integration pattern. Okay, in REST integration pattern, like whenever we are designing API, we need to create the YAML file. Okay, we'll discuss about YAML file, but yeah, at this moment, it's a kind of documentation which tells the behavior of the API. Okay, so first thing we do, we create the YAML file. Okay, then it's a lightweighted. Okay, having better throughput, and it supports the multiple messaging format. So if we develop any API using REST integration pattern, then we term this as a REST API. And SOAP API, like before REST API in market, SOAP API was like very trending and everyone was using SOAP API, but it has some limitation. Okay. SOAP API support only XML format of data. Okay. If there will be any other format, so first thing you need to do, you need to do the data transformation. Like if you are getting any other format, so you need to transform the data into XML format, and then you need to do the processing. Okay. And for SOAP API, whenever you want to design a SOAP API, you need to follow the SOAP integration pattern. Okay. Like SOAP, you can say SOAP protocol. So to develop any SOAP API, you need to follow the SOAP protocol, and it has their own set of rules. Okay. For SOAP integration, it has their own set of rules, and you must need to follow that set of rule to develop SOAP API. Okay. And whenever we are developing SOAP API, similar to REST API, like in REST API, what we do, we create YAML file, and for SOAP API, you need to create the visual file. Okay. So the purpose is same. In REST API, YAML file tells the behavior of REST API. Same way, SOAP in SOAP API, visual files tells the behavior of the API. Okay. So I'm just mentioning the key points. In REST API, first thing you need to know that is you need to create the YAML file. Okay. And what YAML file do? Tells it tells the behavior of the API. Okay. And then support multiple message format. Better throughput. Better throughput means better performance. So if any API is taking 3 seconds and if any API is taking 5 seconds, so first API which is taking lesser time giving better throughput. Okay. And then it follow REST integration pattern. Now coming to SOAP API. So here we need to have visual file. Okay, we'll see how visual file looks like. This YAML and visual file we'll see later. and it support only XML format. So you can see REST API support multiple message format like XML, JSON, CSV, text. You can pass data in any format. But if you have SOAP API, it data must be in XML format. If not, then first thing you need to do, you need to convert into XML. Okay. So if you have data in a, so if you have data in any other format, first thing you need to do, you need to convert into XML format. So it will take some processing time. Okay. So definitely this performance will not be good compared to REST API. So it will have relatively poor throughput. Okay, compared to REST API, it will give less throughput or poor throughput, and it follow the SOAP protocol. Okay, so REST API follow the REST design pattern. Okay, and REST is a integration pattern which has some set of rule. Okay, or you can say uh, which has some governance, API governance. Based on that, we develop the API. Okay, if we come to API governance, then it's a set of rule which we can follow. Okay, it's not mandatory to follow. Those are some best practice which we can follow. But if we are talking about protocol, okay, so what SOAP API is that? If we are talking about the protocol, then that rule, whatever rule is there inside the protocol, we must need to follow. Okay, let's take one real life example. Okay, so let's say you are living in any society. In that society, there are two rules, two kind of rules are there. One rules are there which is created by society. Okay, and the purpose is to manage the society easily. We created some kind of rule, and whatever persons are living in that society, they are living in some country, and that country has some government rule. Okay. So if we are saying about the government rule, so those set of rule you must need to follow. Otherwise, what will happen? You might go for jail and you will get some penalty. Okay. So if we say anything where you must need to follow, otherwise you will get penalty kind of thing, then those are protocols. What we have for SOAP API. If you will not follow the rule of the SOAP API while developing the SOAP API, your API will not work technically. Okay, so whatever set of rules we have, you must need to follow that set of rule to develop your SOAP API. Otherwise, your SOAP API will not work. Okay. Now coming to REST integration pattern, there are some rules which we know as API governance. Okay. So it's recommended to follow that rule, but it's not mandatory. Okay, you can develop one REST API without using YAML file. Okay, it doesn't means you will get some technical error. Your API will still work, but you are not following some governance. So it will be for other, it will be difficult to understand. Only difference is there. In case of SOAP API, whatever rules are there, you must need to follow. Otherwise, it will not work technically. But in case of REST API, there are some set of rules you should follow. It's not like you must need to follow. You should follow. So it will be easy for everyone to understand your API, what you are doing. Hope everyone clear with this two kind of API. Now coming to scheduler API. Okay. So this scheduler API, it's a non-real-time API. So whatever REST and SOAP API you have seen, these are real-time API. Whenever it will receive the request, it will pass that request to target system. But there are many places where data will not be exchanged at real time. Okay, let's say data is coming, they will store to some location, and based on some frequency, it can be fixed frequency or it can be some configured frequency. Fixed frequency means every 30 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 1 minute. If we have frequency like that, every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, or every day, once in a day. Okay. So if we have any particular rule, like if we have any particular frequency, either fixed frequency or configured frequency, and based on that, we are exchanging the data. Let's say there are some users, they are changing the data into database. And whatever change are coming in the database, we need to pass those changes into Salesforce system. Okay. So if we have this kind of requirement, so whatever change we will get in database, we need to pass those change from the database to Salesforce based on some frequency, like once in a day or every 1 hour. In 1 hour, whatever change will come, we need to sync that into Salesforce system. So that is frequency is every 1 hour. Let's say every day at 1 a.m. what we will do, our requirement is whatever change we have in database in last 1 day, take all the change and move to target system. So that will be frequency will be every 1 day. Okay, so in that way, you can define the frequency. It will be fixed or configured one. So if you are developing any interface which runs on configured time, then that kind of API scheduler API. Hope everyone clear with this scheduler API also. And next we have event-driven API. So what happens in event-driven API? Whenever any event will occur, okay, so what it will do, it will take the data and it will pass the data to target system. Let's say another example, same kind of, we need to move data from the database to Salesforce system. And this time, we don't need to wait for 1 hour or every 1 day. Whenever there will be change into database, it will trigger the API, and our API will do all the orchestration. Okay, and it passed the data to target system. It can be Salesforce or anything. So in that case, based on the event, we are moving data from the one system to another system. So in source system, if there will be any event, either new data will be created or any existing data will be updated. So it will create the event on source side. And once event will be created, our API interface will take that data and pass to target system. So those kind of API is known as event-driven API. Okay, so scheduler API is based on frequency. This is based on event. Okay, so let me know if everyone, like if anyone has any doubt in any kind of API. So mostly like when you will do any integration, you will work on this kind of API only. REST API, SOAP API, scheduler API, event-driven API. Any question from anyone?
Ravi, means in Mule,
Yeah.
mostly we are using the REST API and SOAP API, right? And scheduler. These was
Whenever you will work for project, okay. So out of 10 project, in 9 project, okay, more than 95% of time you will develop the REST API. Okay. And there can be one project where like most of the API will be either scheduler or event-driven API. Only few
okay.
projects will be there where you will develop the like where most of the API is event-driven or scheduler API. Otherwise, nowadays REST API is getting too much popularity, and everyone like preferring to develop REST API and use REST API since it's easy to integrate with any system. So,
Means in our
like whenever you
these
will
two
work
are
for Mulesoft, yes, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, Ravi. Means in our course, these two are some examples and POCs are the
Yes,
scheduler
yes,
API.
yes, yes. We will have example of scheduler event-driven API for each kind. We have example. Even we will develop SOAP API also.
Okay.
Yeah, but like in market, you can say like most of the places you will keep using the REST API. So you should have very good understanding of REST API. Okay, and other kind of API, event-driven scheduler and SOAP API. So this you should know. Okay, it's not like a mandatory thing, but you should know. Many places you will use, but REST API that will be very frequently used.
Okay.
Okay, any other
Ravi,
query?
Ravi, can you explain event driven once more? Means what kind of events it's required to trigger this?
Okay, so event means any kind of event. Let's say your source system, like every system, whatever we are talking here, they will have some data. Okay, now if there is any change in the data, how data will be changed? Either existing data will be updated or we are creating new records or we are inserting new data. So any of this way this data will be updated, or you can say event will be created in source system. Creating event means either we are updating the data or creating new records in database. So what we need to do, like there will be business need. If there will be any change in source data, that change should reflect to target system also. So in
Yep.
that case, yeah, whenever we will have any change, then it will trigger our API and it will pass that data to target system. In Salesforce, maybe you have, if anyone have used Salesforce earlier, then you have heard about the platform event or triggers. So for Salesforce, we will have that one. For database, we have another operation. Okay. So it will process the data based on the events. Is it clear now?
Yeah. So it means like it is also having good throughput, right?
Sorry, what do you mean by good throughput?
It will also have good performance, just like REST and
Performance.
just like REST.
So performance wise, you cannot say like it will be good or bad. This is kind of integration pattern, and it not depend on the performance. It depends on the business need. Okay, if your business need, if there is any change in the source system like database or file system, we must need to migrate the change into target system. Then we will develop the event driven API. If we will have requirement like every 1 hour, whatever change will come in the source system, but whatever new record will be created into source system should go to target system, then we will develop the scheduler API. Sorry, if like whenever there will be any change or update in the source system, it should be migrate to target system, then event driven. And if we will have requirement, whatever change will come, we will move that change every 1 hour. Then we will develop scheduler API. If we will have requirement, we need to expose our API as a SOAP API since source system can consume SOAP API only. Then we will develop SOAP API. If we will have simple requirement like whenever there will be change on the source system, they will trigger our API and our API will pass the data to target system. Then we will develop the REST API.
Yeah. So there is a similarity between REST and event, which I'm thinking.
No, REST API is we are developing API based on the REST integration pattern. So there you need to create the YAML file. We need to create the like we need to follow the API governance. Okay. So if we are developing API following the REST integration pattern, that is REST API. But if we are following the protocol or set of rule which is defined by SOAP protocol, then that a kind of API is SOAP API. Now, how you will identify? You need to develop the REST API using REST integration pattern, or you need to develop the SOAP API based on the SOAP protocol. Again, it will be based on the business need. Let's say source system can consume only SOAP API, then you need to develop SOAP API. Let's say you don't have any such requirement and they are asking you to expose as a API, so they can invoke, source system can invoke. Then it's good to create the REST API since REST API support multiple message format. It has better throughput compared to SOAP API. So definitely by default, we should go with REST API.
Okay.
Any other query? Okay. So this terminology we will use very frequently, API. So now everyone clear what is API. Sometime you will heard the term web service. Okay. So whenever we are deploying this API on internet, so that we can make request from anywhere. In that case, we term this REST API as a web service. Since now it's available on website, it's available on internet, and we can consume that API directly from the internet. So in that case, we term this particular API as a web service. Okay. So this we will not use very frequently, like what is web service, but you should have idea. Okay. Once we deploy our API on internet, then we term this as a web service. And we will use term like source and target. So can anyone tell me what is source and what is source system and what is target system?
So system is the one where we send requests, like it is front end system, and target will receive response. It will be like a backend where it has the process data.
Yeah, correct. So source system means from where we are receiving, our API is receiving the data. So whenever we are discussing now, we means API. What kind of API? That is different thing. Okay. So as a Mulesoft or ESB technology, or we are now developer, Mulesoft developer or ESP developer, our responsibility to take the data from one place and move the data to another place. Okay. So what will be one place? That is the source system. The source system means from where data will start the processing. And we have another thing, that is target system. So where we are processing the data. So like whenever we are developing any API, so our request will come from the source system. It can be anything. It can be front end application like web application or mobile application, or it can be any other system like Salesforce system, database system, that also can be source system. And then target, where we are processing the data. So for any application, there can be multiple source system, there can be multiple target system. Okay, but trigger point will be only one. Trigger point means from where our API will start the execution. If we are developing REST API, then whatever, let's say you have 2-3 system from where we will get the data. So trigger point will be any one of the system, not all, any one of the system, and then inside the API, we will do all these orchestration and we will do all these business logic. And target system, again, it can be one or multiple. Let's say we are getting the data from the source system, that is front end application, and we need to pass that data to database also and Salesforce also. So that will be our target system. It can be database, Salesforce, or some other system. Okay, hope everyone clear with the source and target system also. So like that, let me think what are the common terminology we will use very frequently. ESB part, I already mentioned, and during interview also they can ask what is ESB. So you need to tell them ESB is enterprise service bus, which carry data from one place to another place. Now, like we will have different API for different purpose, and for them, source and target will be different. Okay, I think at this moment these are the terminology. Slowly, once we will start using other terminology, we will keep discussing those things. Okay, so next what we will do, we will learn few component. Okay, so first thing, we will start with the REST API. So as I mentioned earlier, whenever we are developing REST API, we need to follow the REST architecture pattern. Okay, in REST architecture pattern, it's a best practice you can say, or it's a API governance. To develop any REST API, you need to create, first you need to create the YAML file. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier also, whatever rules we have in case of REST API, those rules we should follow. It's not mandatory. So that means we can develop a REST API using YAML file also, or without using YAML file also. So can anyone tell me what will be difference if we are creating any REST API without YAML file, and if we are creating any REST API with YAML file? So what will be basic difference between these two API? Anyone want to answer? Okay, no problem. So let's take one real life example. Okay, so let's say if you are creating one home, like you are creating one house. So what all thing you can do? First thing, you can follow the proper process of creating the house. Like first you will create the design of your house, then you will go to municipality, you will take all the approvals, and then you will start building your home. Okay, this is one way. Second way, like you know the local builders, and you went with them, and without creating any map or anything, you started building your home. not sure someone is trying to joining again and again, so it's creating some network issue where you are getting disconnected. Anyone facing any network issue? Like I can see few people are joining again and again.
No.
No, Ravi.
Okay.
Actually, the
So
power
whenever
up
you are creating any,
that's
okay. So whenever you are creating any house, you can create your house without creating the map, without taking the approval, and you can create the house directly also. So what will happen if you are creating your house by taking all the by creating all the map design and by taking all the approval? So for everyone, it will be very clear. Okay, that will be registered on government portal, and for everyone, it will be easy to understand what kind of home you are going to prepare and what will be location and all. But if you are creating your home without creating any map, without taking any approval, that means everyone know you are creating the home. They know they can use this home to live there, but how they will, where they will enter, where will be window, how many entry gate will be there, how many exit gate will be there, they don't know. Okay, for everything they need to come and they need to check. But if you are creating any home by following all this standard process like taking approval, creating design, by taking all this, following by following all this standard process, then for everyone it will be easy to understand. Since by going through map, they will able to understand the behavior of the home, like how many entry gate, how many exit gate, how many rooms are there, how many floors are there, everything will be there on the design map. Okay, so that is the main purpose of creating the raml file while developing the API. So it tells the behavior of the API. Okay, without raml also you can create. But if someone want to consume your REST API, they don't know anything, like they don't have any documentation for that. So they like for everything they will come to developer and they will ask how to use this API. But in case of REST API, raml file will be created which tells the behavior of the API. Means if someone want to consume our API, they will get all the detail like what kind of API is this, and then like how many, like you can say what all request you can pass, what all response you will get, what security policy is applied on that API, how many headers are there, how many query parameters are there. So all this detail, like all this understanding you will get from this raml file. So it's kind of one best practice you should follow while developing the REST API. So for everyone, whoever are like are consumer of your API, for them it will be easy to understand the behavior of your API. And if you don't use the REST raml file, then for everything they need to go either go through code and they need to connect with developer. They can only tell the behavior of the API, what will be input, what will be output, what all things are mandatory, what all things are temporary. Okay. So like what we will do in next class, we will develop this API by following both the process, by following the raml file. Okay. Like first we will create the YAML file and then we will develop the REST API. And second, what we will do, we will create the, like first we will create the RAM, sorry. First we will create the API without using the YAML file. And second, we will develop the API by using the YAML file. Okay. So here within the same POC, like for same development, we will learn multiple components. So first component, we will learn how to expose our API as a REST API. Okay, so we are saying we are developing REST API using Mulesoft. Every time we are saying we will develop API. But how we are exposing our API as a scheduler API or as a REST API or as a SOAP API. So first thing we will see that part. And for SOAP API also, okay. So whenever we are developing the SOAP API, we need to create the visual file. Okay. And in REST API, as I mentioned, we can create the REST API with using the YAML file without using the YAML file. But in SOAP API, you don't have that much flexibility. You must need to create the visual file if you want to develop any API. Without visual file, you cannot create the API. So SOAP API also we will see, but nowadays only limited company are using SOAP API, and let's say if they have some legacy application which is developed based on the SOAP API, so only those company are still using. Very rarely you will have requirement you need to develop the SOAP API. Most of the time you will have requirement you need to consume this SOAP API, and that also frequency will be very less. Means you will not get this kind of requirement very frequently. Very rarely you will get, okay, in your project you need to integrate with any SOAP service. Since nowadays everyone start using the REST services and everyone exposing their API or services as a REST API only. Okay, hope everyone clear till this point. So yeah, let's have our next session. Tomorrow, if you people want, I can take. Let me create one pool in our WhatsApp group, and if everyone will be okay, then we'll take tomorrow since I missed the Wednesday class. But if you people don't have time, if you are not okay, then yeah, we will have our class on Saturday and Sunday only.
Okay, Ravi, I am okay to have a class tomorrow.
Yeah, I will create one pool and we'll see if
Okay.
everyone will have same response. Then yeah, we will have. So in next class, we will develop one REST API without using the YAML file. So we'll see how to expose our API as a REST API, and we'll do small, very small views like orchestration and all. So yeah, let's connect tomorrow and let's discuss that part. If anyone
Ravi, I
has
have
any query,
one small doubt actually.
yeah,
Hello.
go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Ravi, you're using the terminology data orchestration. So I heard this in interview questions also. So what is this actually? Like how you explain it?
Okay, yeah. So let's try to understand this also using real life example only. So have you seen, like, have you heard the term orchestra in some party event or somewhere?
Yes. Yes.
So what orchestra, like, what those people do? Like, those are team of people. Okay, so they have different instruments. They have drum or they have multiple different instrument. And what they do, they play those instruments to make a meaningful sound, to make a song. Okay, what orchestra people used to do, They play the different instrument, and whatever sound comes from different instrument, that makes a meaningful song. Okay. So same thing Mulesoft do. Mulesoft also do like orchestration only. Orchestration means connecting with different systems, either Salesforce, database, JMS, HTTP. So connect with the different system and do some meaningful work. Let's say we have requirement to like fetch the customer detail, which is there in the database. So first thing, you will receive a request from the source system, that is front end application. And then from front end application, it will call the REST API. Now inside the REST API, you might need have requirement. You need to call some other system to get more details. And then you will call the target system, let's say database, to insert all this data into database. So here, as a orchestration, what we are doing, we are connecting with the source front end application. In between, we have some third party application or something to enrich the data. And then we are calling the target system, that is database. So we are helping these three heterogeneous system to communicate with each other. And what we are doing, we are calling all this heterogeneous system in such a way it do some meaningful task. How orchestra do? They play those instrument to make a meaningful sound. So same way, we are integrating with different heterogeneous system. We are doing orchestration to make meaningful, to develop a meaningful API or to perform a meaningful task. So that's why we use this term as a orchestration. Is it clear?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Then for today we are good. Let's connect tomorrow. And whatever recording I have, so I will share by maybe 1 2 hour. Then you can follow this recording. But yeah, initially 1 2 class, it's more theoretical only. Now slowly we will move on practical part. So in tomorrow class, we will install the Anypoint Studio, and we'll see one small POC. We will develop one simple REST API using MuleSoft. Okay. Okay, fine then. Thanks everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Rick.
all. Bye.